Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome to UnCut Juels. I'm Kristin Juel. I'll be your host tonight. Because, why not? It's Tuesday in the year of 2020. I'm excited for our guest tonight. We're going to have a little bit of a fun session with the two people I love with all of my heart. So it's really nice to be able to spend some time with them. But before we bring them on camera, I wanted to remind you we're 2 weeks away from voting. Please make sure you've got everything organized so you know what's going on, you know who you're voting for. Everybody knows it. It's a really big election. Let's just, do our best and represent your point of view. And then also we're releasing on Friday, Jessica Childress's EP called I'm Learning, produced by Rune Westberg. They'll both be joining us next week on UnCut Juels, and we'll be talking about their production, similar to like how tonight's going to go, I think. It's very exciting. If you haven't pre-saved her EP, please do so. You can find it on any of our platforms, any of her platforms. It's called I'm Learning. There's a special link for it. And we would love your support as she's going into this. So pre-saves are a really, I don't know how many of you actually work in the music industry, but it's kind of like a little known, sort of secret sauce for us to be able to get a running jump into a release. So it's always nice to have your little pre-save or pre-ad, depending on your platform, in advance of the release. And we would really appreciate it. It means a lot to all of us. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it's a great help for us. So thanks in advance for any of the support you can give. And then next week, we'll have some fun with Jessica Childress and Rune Westberg. So be sure to RSVP for that. And we'll see you then. And then let's see, what else do we have? Tonight, I'm so excited to share with you that we've got Jim Scott, 7-time Grammy-winning producer, engineer, Jim Scott, mixer. He's everything. He does everything. And we've got Hamish Anderson with us too. And they're going to be talking about the making of Trouble. Come on, guys. Come and join me. Hello.
Hi there, Kristin.
Hey.
Hi. Hello, 7-time Grammy-winning producer, engineer, extraordinaire, mixing person. It's a mouthful. Yeah, there you are. Welcome to UnCut Juels. We're so excited you're here. How you doing?
This is great. Technology in action. I'm doing great. Yeah, really good. Thanks.
Good, great. And then welcome back, Hamish Anderson. We know we've had you in the studio before. Welcome back. Yeah. What are we calling you?
Thank you. Good to be back.
7-time sandwich eater
champion.
I thought there was going to be a banner for that. I was so excited.
That would have been good. Next time.
That's what I said. Like a sandwich every day for a week.
That's the way.
Yeah.
Supplier's diet.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We definitely need to get Supplier's diet is the best. It's actually a really good one.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so how's everybody doing? I know I haven't seen you guys I can't even remember when the last time I saw you. That's scary.
I remember it was we were all together right before I came back to Australia at Hotel Cafe when I had a gig there. So that was like mid-November last year, I guess it was.
Oh man, that long?
Yeah, that's right. Crazy. That's right. That was your last show at the cafe. Yeah, and they came, and Carol was there too, right? I think it was there. That was a beautiful night. That was a beautiful night. But look, it's amazing to think how long we've known each other. I can't believe. I was thinking about this when Hamish and I were talking about like what do we want to do, and we wanted to have a night with you so we could get to spend some time with you. And then we were like, wow, Trouble's going to be 4 years old tomorrow, October 21st. We just looked it up. So it's officially tomorrow, which means in Australia, it's the future. So it's today, right?
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It's a good future. Tomorrow will be a good day.
Tomorrow for us. So I can't believe it's been 4 years since we released Trouble, the album, and 5 years since we've all collectively been working through this together. So cheers. Amazing.
Yeah, cheers to that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 records out in 5 years is pretty amazing these days. That's a lot of content. That's really good.
Yeah. On full albums. And we were thinking about it today too, because it's obvious, like we I mean, we did so many releases off of that album, and yet, like we'll talk about, the song to beat is Trouble. So here we are. So how's everybody doing? I know, Hamish, you're in Australia, and you're officially done, or sorry, you're about to go out of lockdown. So I heard it's 100 days now you've been in lockdown.
Yeah, well, I'm in Melbourne, so the rest of Australia hasn't been on the same lockdown, but Melbourne's been on, really crazy strict lockdown, which, things kind of got out of hand here around June or July, I think it was. And so then we went into a very strict lockdown, which was like, you could only leave the house for like an hour a day, and you could only leave to go and basically in your area, so 5 km, I don't know what that is in whatever, but like just, in your area to go walk. And yes, and there was a curfew, like, couldn't be out of your house from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. And it's just been, it's good. It's really good now because I think we're hopefully getting to kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel where the numbers have significantly dropped, and there's now basically in the next 2 weeks, restrictions are easing and they're reopening things. So it feels definitely in a better place now. But it's just been a very, very crazy time, as it has kind of everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah.
But that does really sound, it sounds tough, and it sounds really pretty austere. But I wish we were doing it here in America, because
that's the thing,
if we don't do it, we're all going to get it. And I don't, I mean, healthy people are dying. Young, healthy people are getting sick. So, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I wish there was better communication.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that's the thing. As hard as it's been, I'm glad that we did it, because that's the thing. And now you actually see, it was really hard and it took a long time, but now you see that it actually has worked and numbers have gone down. It went from like almost 800 or something was our worst, and now it's down to like 1 or 2 cases a day. So you can see, that it takes a while, but it works. And now I think it's just hopefully keeping it down and, getting a balance between returning to some normality and still, being sensible and wearing masks and keeping distance and just, trying to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sense of normal life is, God only knows what that means anymore. And
new
Jim,
normal.
I know, thankfully, the new normal. We've been saying that for years, though. I know you're in our happy place. Our happy place. I think it's your happy place too. Tell us where you are.
Well, I'm in my studio. I live in California, and I have a studio close to my house. And I've been very, very fortunate that during the lockdown, I was able to stay home. I have a great place to live, and we were able to just shift gears and stay home and survive. But now that things been opening back up and some people are working, I'm very, very lucky. I have a very big space, and most of the time I just work with one other person. I'm usually just mixing something. But if some people come in for an overdub or even for a tracking date, I have enough rooms where people can stay far enough apart. I have enough air conditioners where nobody needs to breathe the same air. I have enough square feet where everybody can stay really far apart, and we can put 5 or 6 people together in a room and still have incredible amount of ventilation and social distancing. And as long as people just sort of, be smart and play by the rules, we can almost work normally. So
that's great.
That's kind of the good news. It's not really very much fun. This is the first time I've had my mask off all day, because even though I have clients here today, I'm around the corner, inside a room, with the door shut, and I've got my mask off. So it's pretty good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to be able to see your face. Yeah. I didn't think about that. That's crazy. Wow. So obviously, I mean, you guys are on different continents now, and let me ask the question, because I know, although we just admitted that Hamish is from Australia, Jim, where are you from originally?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I was born in Indianapolis, and as a baby, we moved to Detroit, Michigan. My father worked for the Ford Motor Company, so we did a little time up in Dearborn while he was, in the kind of like the Ford Motor Company think tank, which was actually pretty cool. The era that he was in, he was on a team with Lee Iacocca, who later became the president of General Motors and Chrysler, and Robert McNamara, who later became Secretary of State. And so, you know, we were fortunate. We you know, we had a good life. Later, he was transferred to St. Louis, so I moved to St. Louis when I was 4 years old. Had a very stable home life. Lived in the same house until I graduated high school and went off to college. So I grew up in the Midwest, and it was great. You know, when I left, I was pretty sick of it, but looking back on it, you know, it was a great place to live and a great place to grow up.
That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like, you know, Hamish growing up in Melbourne and you growing up in the Midwest, at some point when we started connecting, I'm kind of curious, like, both of you had inspirations. Maybe, Hamish, do you want to talk about your inspirations, and then we'll have Jim talk about some of his as we were growing up, just musically, like, what was the thing that moved you?
Yeah. Well, the first, like, real musical memory I have of music hitting me and inspiring me to want to play guitar and write songs was hearing the Beatles. And yeah, it was the Beatles' White Album that my dad had lying around on, you know, double disc CD. And just one day I kind of put it on, and I remember, like, back in the USSR, just coming out of the speaker and just instantly exciting me. And, you know, something went off in my brain that I thought, I want to play guitar and I want to do whatever that is. And then it was like, you know, months of begging my parents to get me a guitar. And finally my dad and my grandpa took me down to the guitar shop, and there was a orange flaming Ibanez that I think in my brain I thought was a Les Paul like Jimmy Page used, but my dad was probably super happy that it actually was an Ibanez, which is significantly cheaper and a good first guitar to get. And I got that, and it was just like, I just remember instantly wanting to write songs. Like, that was a huge part of it, that, you know, John Lennon's voice, when I got further into the Beatles, listening to John Lennon, you know, that was what made me want to write songs and play guitar. And my dad's record collection was all the music I still love now. So it was finding the Stones and Led Zeppelin and John Lee Hooker and B.B. King and, you know, Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and all those people. It's just, you know, it was like each week finding, you know, listening to The Who, and it was like I would ask my dad, you know, all about The Who, and then it was finding out about Eric Clapton and all that stuff. And it just kind of set me on the journey that I'm still kind of on now.
Yeah. So, Jim, how about you? What about some musical influences when you were growing up in the Midwest?
Well, that's what, you know, that's, you know, it's really amazing. I'm surprised we didn't talk about that's kind of what I was going to say. Basically, what you just said is what I was going to say, except though that was happening when all that was happening live when I was a kid. I mean, my mom played the piano, and we had a musical family, and my brothers and I had access to music lessons, and I had piano lessons for a minute, and I had drum lessons for a minute, and I had trumpet lessons for a minute, and none of it really stuck, which is sort of my shortcoming. I'm not a musician, but I kind of wish I was, but it just somehow none of that really stuck with me. But my first memory is, you know, my parents love music, and I remember we went to the record store, and I guess sometimes now you take your kids to get some little trinket, like, you know, I don't know, I'm probably dating myself, but for my kids, we would go buy them a Pokemon card or something, like a set of cards, or, you know, when you take your kids out, you want to get them a little treat or something. So my folks would take me out, and we would buy a record, which I thought was pretty incredible, because I think they only cost like 25 cents or something back in the 50s. And I remember my very first record that I bought was a Perry Como record. Perry Como was a kind of a smooth, silky singer that my parents liked quite a bit. And I bought his single. It was a sort of a novelty single called "What Did Delaware?" And it was a joke song about all the states. Like, what did Delaware? She wore a brand new jersey. She went to say Hawaii. She went to pay her taxes. You know, so it was funny song. But I also remember buying Jailhouse Rock Elvis Presley record, and I still have the 45 with the original jacket of him with the scene from the movie on it, which was pretty great. And
That's awesome.
and time went on, and I liked pop radio. All kids liked pop radio, and I listened to all the great music in the late 50s and the early 60s. And Hamish, you're talking about the White Album. I got my first copy of the White Album from my brother, who was in Vietnam fighting the war. He sent me a copy of the White Album from Vietnam that he bought at the PX.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool, I think.
Awesome.
And I still have it, of course. But
That's amazing.
it's just all those same influences. I'm still much more interested in music that was made and recorded in the analog style, without when people had to like sing in tune and play in time before you had the ability to fix and change and tweak. Not that you don't have the right to try to make something better any way that you can, but there was a whole long era of music making where people just played it and sang it, and if you were good enough, that was the record. And you watch live videos and live TV shows of some of these, some old Ed Sullivan shows where people were singing live, or other, Dean Martin shows, or even the Johnny Cash show. They were sitting in front of a microphone going out live, and you don't hear a bad note. Like these people, they could sing and play, no monitors, microphone 5 feet away from them, and they sound like they're in your living room. So my earliest memories of music are of great songs that move me, and just singing along and playing along with songs that I loved.
That's great. Well, you answered my next question, which was, what's your first memory of music? Well done.
I guess that would have to be that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Was that your first memory, or were there others? Was there like one that was definitive for you?
Well, like Hamish said, the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, that was. I mean, there was amazing music before the Beatles. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there was in the early '60s, there were huge stars with huge hits, and but the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, that was my counterculture. As a 12 or 13-year-old kid. Okay, I need shoes like that.
Yeah,
I need hair like that. Gosh, looking at that thing, George Harrison was a teenager.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and I almost was. So it's like, well, he's not much older than me, and look at him. I need some pants like that. Where do you get a suit like that? That's what I need.
That's crazy. That's great. What about you, Hamish? What's your first memory with music? Was it the Beatles album, I guess?
Yeah, I think that was the first one that really hit me. Music for me, kind of like what Jim was saying before that. It was just, before I heard the Beatles, I don't know whether I even liked the music I was hearing, but I just listened to it because I had an older sister. So whenever she would get a good Charlotte CD or a John Mayer CD, I remember distinctly not liking the John Mayer CD. This was before John Mayer went bluesy, so when he was more poppy. But most of that stuff I would just kind of listen to because she was listening to, and it was just kind of like, I don't know if I liked it or not. It was just because she listened to it. But before that, I think the main thing was I was always interested in history. So like when I was a kid, I was really obsessed with Charlie Chaplin. Like there was a big period of time where I was just gung-ho obsessed with Charlie Chaplin and like Marlon Brando and Alfred Hitchcock and all this stuff. So I just liked old stuff and stuff with history. And that still, I think, is why I like, the blues resonates with me, and rock and roll and folk music, because any music that has roots in history, that's what's interesting to me. A lot of modern music doesn't necessarily have roots or history, so it isn't as appealing to me, where I think the main thing that runs through all the things I'm interested in is just being able to, find out where they got it from and who they were influenced by and where it came from. And that's just kind of been like a thread with my interests.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's great. I like that. It's amazing to think that there's at least maybe like 2 or 3 years between you guys in age, and you have a very similar experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think I'm a few years older.
Hamish is 85.
Yeah. I just look like a 14-year-old girl, but I'm actually 85.
He's 85.
I got a good plastic
You're
surgery.
remotely close to that, Jim, but yeah.
I'm only 82, so it's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not even close to
Yeah,
that.
he's
But
a young
like,
tuck.
Hamish, I always say Hamish is like 85 years old, and like people are like, "How can you hang out with him?" I'm like, he's like a literally like an old curmudgeon. Like, I don't want to do that tonight. Anyway, okay, so my next kind of like evolution of that is like, when did your musical careers start? Obviously, you were interested in music, but when did you like definitively be like, I'm gonna do this for a career? Like, this is what I want to do. Let's start with you, Jim.
Okay. Well, I all through high school I played drums in a rock and roll band, and we were popular. We were sort of the it band of my high school, and we played all the dances, and we played, the local teen centers. And my lead singer and I, our families had, just as it happened to be, we had matching Ford station wagons. They were the same year and the same color with the same paneling on the side. So those were the cars that we would use to drive our equipment to gigs. So we made banners of our band and put them in the back windows, and we would roll up in 2 matching station wagons with our band logo and all our PA and all our equipment. So it was really a lot of fun for those 3 years of being in high school to do that. And I thought, well, I can actually do this. We're doing it. It was fantastic. So off I went to college, and I thought, well, I'm just going to get in a band when I get to college, and this is going to be fantastic. And I had my drum set, and I went and I auditioned for a couple of bands, and I quickly realized that coming from St. Louis, Missouri to Los Angeles, California was a completely different fishbowl, and I actually couldn't play the drums at all. I didn't even know how. So I tried a couple of bands, and it was horrible. So I just I sort of went through college and became an adult and got a job, and one thing led to another. And after 4 or 5 years of being an adult and working after college, I just thought, I really hate my job. I kind of hate being an adult. I'm not happy. I want to go back and find some happiness in my joy and just do something. And what could I possibly do? When was I really, really happy? So it didn't take long for me to remember that I was always happy when I was around music, making music, driving the station wagon, setting up the equipment, playing, rehearsing, hanging out, doing whatever. So I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna apply for a job as a stagehand at the Universal City Amphitheater, because I could be around all those shows. I know how to load. I'm going to apply to be a stagehand. I'm going to apply at a record store so I can listen to records all day long and sell records. And I'm going to apply at a recording studio just to see if I could get a job. I mean, I don't know how to make records, but somebody knows how to make records. And if you're in a recording studio, you're making records, so making music. So that's what I'm going to go do. So by a miracle, I got a job at a recording studio, even though I was a little old for the job of being the gopher. I was, I was a college educated, 5-year experienced, professional applying for a gopher job at a recording studio, and I got it, which was a miracle. And I was happy to make minimum wage at that time.
And you were a geologist?
Yeah,
right?
I was an engineering geologist. In Southern California, we have a lot of interesting geology. There's earthquake studies, there's liquefaction studies, there's hillside building. It's all that kind of stuff that you do. You take samples, you run tests, you make recommendations. It's a great profession. I just kind of hated it. I was very adult and grown up for me, and I just wasn't into it. So
You're like, I'm not ready.
I'm not ready. So I got a job at a recording studio, and I worked very, very hard. I was really motivated, and I was excited to be on a path of like what I really wanted to do. And, my goal when I was a janitor, I was a gopher, and then I was a janitor, and then I was a setup guy, and then I was an assistant. And I just was thinking, God, if I could just be a recording engineer and sit in that chair and work with real artists, like people that I've heard of, like maybe somebody that's actually made a real record, that would be like the best life ever in this whole world. And so that actually happened pretty quickly. It happened for me in like 4 years, from the time I applied for my gopher job until I was actually making records, was like a 4-year kind of thing. And I was ecstatic and I was satisfied and I was happy. And so, I mean, part of this conversation is if anybody's wondering what they're going to do with their life, just make sure you don't set your sights too low, because chances are you'll hit your mark. If you really go for it, you'll hit your mark sooner than later. So I didn't have any idea how to produce records, and I didn't have any idea how to make records. I just thought, being an engineer was like learning the equipment and the microphones and taking your cue from the producer and the artist and being a team player. And that's sort of my job now. Now I do all of those jobs at the same time, and it's better for me to work that way. It's not that I don't play well with others. It's just that I am more comfortable being the producer and the engineer and the mixer, because the communication is one-on-one. And and that's, with other artists as well as Hamish, that's the quickest way to like get right to the bone. It's like, what is going on? And it's just you and me, and we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to go figure it out, and then we're going to record it. So there's no other guy getting a drum sound, and there's no other guy picking the songs, and there's no other guy doing the mix. It's me and my artist, and it's really worked well for me. I enjoy it. It's good. It's hard work, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Didn't you say that the first time you were able to engineer, what was that? The first time you were assistant engineer, or was it engineering? When you did didn't you get nominated the first time?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had worked, I had worked my way to the top of the assistant engineer chain at the record plant. Shout out to the record plant, who I love dearly with all my heart, and very good to me. But I'd worked my way up as far as I could go, and I needed more money. I was making $4.50 an hour and working 100 hours a week. And I thought, if I'm gonna go in and get, I'm gonna ask for a 25 cents an hour and make $5 an hour, so I can make an extra $25 a week. This is gonna make a big difference in my life. And I went in to ask for that 25 cents an hour raise, and God bless him, Chris Stone, the late great owner of the record plant, said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't give you that quarter, because if I give you the quarter, everybody else is going to need a quarter, and I can't afford that. So that's it. No, I can't give it to you." And I said, "Okay, well, I got to move on. I got a wife, and I got a house, and I got to make more money. I got to move on." And he said, "That's great. Now you're a recording engineer. So go out there and bring me a client." And I just thought, this is fantastic. So I was unemployed for about a year, and then one thing led to another, and I finally got a break. I got a really wonderful big break. I had made friends with a guy who was working with Sting, a young, fabulous record producer named Pete Smith, and he and I met under some other circumstances, and he liked me, and I kind of helped him out with some stuff, and he said, "When you want to come and engineer this record with me? I'm making a Sting solo record." And I was like, "Sure." So I flew down to Barbados, and luckily I was well trained, and I knew how to run an SSL console with a computer and how to lock two tape recorders together, and some technology that's now long gone. But at the time it was cutting edge, and I was educated, and I knew what to do, and I had it under my fingers. And I was, even though I was in a different country with a bunch of Englishmen who had attitudes, finally his American band showed up, and we had a great time. So it was an amazing record, The Dream of the Blue Turtles.
That's
and
right.
I was nominated for the best engineered recording, non-classical, for the very first record that I ever engineered, and lost.
Okay, well, but you got it. You got the nomination the first time. That's
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
You're like, and I lost. So yeah, Hamish, that's going to be a hard one to follow. But I was like, maybe you can synthesize your career.
Yeah, mine will be quick. I mean, I don't feel like,
Sorry.
I know I should have gone first, but yeah, I mean, I wanted, like I said, when I was 12, I got the music bug, and just for a long time, it was mostly about playing guitar. And then kind of in my late teens, a lot of it was like, my dream would have been to really be in a band, to be like, one of the guys, and just like be in a band, whatever. But no one I knew played an instrument or had any interest in, it wasn't a cool thing to play guitar when I was like coming up. Like, it was like much cooler to be a DJ or, pop. It was probably around the pop stuff. So Britney Spears and things like that. So guitar wasn't like a super cool thing that people dug. But, so I just, I didn't really have couldn't find people to play with. So I kind of fell into doing like the solo thing just by lack of, not having anyone to play with. Same with singing. It was like, if you would get with a group of people who could play, no one would want to sing. So it was like, I looked at, Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton, who are my heroes. And I was like, well, they sang, so I'll just give it a try because someone's going to do it. And then it was like, really my first kind of like performing experience was just doing like the pub, acoustic guitar, playing like 2-hour sets in pubs. And it was really great in retrospect because I would learn all these Beatles songs and Bob Dylan songs and Tom Petty songs and whatever. And it was like a crash course in songwriting because it really made me break down what made these songs work and, learning all about bridges and choruses and so on, so on. And then it was like, I would sneak in one of my songs, and if people would think it was like one of, just a cover song or didn't stand out, then that was like a really good kind of, learning experience. And really, I got lucky to get to work with a producer here in, I think it was like 2013 or 12. This guy, Eric Dabowski, who was American but had moved to Australia, and through a mutual contact, he enjoyed some songs that I put online. So that was kind of my first experience in a studio, and I learned a lot from it. Just basically, again, being thrown in the deep end and learning about, I didn't even know that like people doubled their voices or guitars. Like I thought that people just went in and played and that was how it happened. And it was like we were talking about before, the length of the song was like how long it took to do it in a studio or whatever. So it was a big learning curve about, I learned a lot about recording. But really, I feel like my career really started to move was when I moved across to America in 2014. And, it was like I did every kind of gig basically you could do. Like from then, even up until now, it's like everything from playing to like, no one in a bar to playing like a really big, huge festivals or opening slots, and like just being a road warrior and getting out there and playing and you just get some really great opportunities. Like I got to open for BB King in the first year I went over, which, for me, coming from Australia and growing up on his music and stuff, that was a huge deal. And then I got to open for Stephen Stills and Los Lobos and just Gary Clark Jr. and all these people, and just to kind of, like Jim was saying, it's like these goals you have, these dreams you have that get to happen, and you just learn so much from it.
Yeah, well, along the way, we did your debut album, which
nice segue.
Really definitively kind of kicked. I feel like we had a lot of momentum on the EPs, which were great, and we love them. But when this album came out, it's amazing. Like obviously, as a debut album, for it to still hold up. I mean, I guess it's pretty much, maybe Jim, you probably have this experience all the time. But like making Trouble was trouble to begin with. And it was also really amazing. And it had like a life of its own. So, 4
that's
years.
A big defining moment, I think, for me. And that's a moment where I do feel like, I'm proud of the stuff I did before, but I do feel like that with Trouble, it's just something that I feel like is really me. And it's a moment where I was able to blend kind of the guitar stuff I wanted to do with the singing and the songwriting, and like, especially, we'll probably get into this, but especially singing wise, my voice before Trouble, when I listen to it now, sounds completely different to me. It's like this kind of low, mumbly, slurry, probably because it sounds like I'm drunk, but probably because I'm Australian, but it's just very like non-defined and like kind of messy. And on Trouble, Jim helped kind of have the voice be so clear and direct and just up front, and the way I sing to me sounds completely different to how I was singing before.
Well, okay, so let's talk. Before we do that, I just want to acknowledge the banner that just was up is because when we released the single Trouble on April 15th, tax day, I guess we did it, 2016, it got added to this Spotify playlist the day it was released, and it's been there ever since, which is pretty mind-blowing if you think about the world that we're in today and the digital consumption of music and how fast people go through things. And when you look back, I mean, it's been seamlessly on there. It's over 4 years. So wow, that's one thing that we didn't even know we were sitting on, but it kind of is the definitive song for you in your catalog right now. At least it seems to be, and it's still the song to beat. So that's one milestone that I think no one could see coming. We weren't planning on any of that, at all. We just sort of like went in, and I think was Trouble the actual first song you guys actually started laying down together?
No, it was. I remember super clearly. It was Working Blues because.
Working Blues. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I remember, me and Jim hadn't worked together before that, and we got a great band of. Jim got an amazing. Well, yeah. Sorry, you go. I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. Don't do that. No, just kidding. But yeah, so like I wanted to talk about and I want to also say shout out to Ali Hagendorf because at Spotify, because I know she believes in your music and I really appreciate all of that support. But when you guys, like what brought you, so let's talk about how you guys got together. How did you get together?
Well, you and me were at a party of a mutual contact of all of us.
Yeah.
And
heard an album.
Yeah, I remember he had on the turntable, I think the album's called Fear and Saturday Night, right? The Ryan Bingham album.
Yeah.
And it was this track called Top Shelf Drug, which is like a great rocker, song. And I just remember, whoever I was talking to, I just stopped paying attention and was listening to this song in the background. And it's funny because the production of it, which a lot of your stuff does, reminded me of the White Album. It had like that drum sound, the way you do vocals and everything. It just, something about it I just thought was awesome. So I asked this guy, who is this and who produced this? And he said, oh, this was produced by Jim Scott. I should introduce you because you two, would get along and click. And then, I remember going out to Pliers. We just went out, you and me, Kristin went out there just to have a meal and hang out and kind of talk. And I remember, Pliers is like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Like it's like you open the door and you're transported to like a different world. And it was just like my name was on Jim has a big like neon light kind of sign. And it was the first thing I saw when I went in, which was super cool. And you were playing John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, I remember with Peter Green. And yeah, we just kind of spoke about music and talked about what type of record I wanted to make. And as you were saying, I'd kind of started with a different producer on some songs and it went south very quickly. And, we weren't seeing eye to eye. So I was a little bit lost in what I was going to do. And like, it was a little bit like I was away from home and just kind of trying to move to America. And I was like, maybe this isn't going to work. And I don't know what's going on. And I'd lost some confidence in myself. And I remember as soon as I met Jim and we spoke about it, it was just like the best I'd felt in months. And I felt excited again about music. And it just kind of, music felt sacred and safe again. And it felt like he was going to be the man to make it happen, and which he was.
Oh.
I remember distinctly being in an airport with you when we were trying to figure out next steps. And when we were talking about the sonic experience, it was the Tom Petty's Wildflower that I remember being that was the thing that you were like, geez, Jim Scott worked on one of my favorite albums ever. And I know my ignorance was I didn't even know that album. So like, it wasn't, I probably knew songs from it, but I didn't know the albums. You spent so much time explaining to me in great detail all of the things that Jim Scott did like on that process, during that process, and and his sound and the design of the sound. And then I think it was Neil Casal. We talked about Neil. There was
and Wilco. Those Wilco records, records I love, and Tedeschi Trucks, Doyle, and just
Doyle. Doyle is another one. Yeah, you worked with
Robbie
Doyle.
Robertson, and
that's right. Yeah. Okay, so there's your history. And I was so like, oh my God, I hope this guy really likes him. So then we came out and had sandwiches with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's how you hook them. Musicians are hungry.
Yeah. And come for the music, stay for the sandwich.
Yeah. And like James Taylor said, they always sing better when they're hungry. So,
And so let's take a pause because obviously Wildflower is now experiencing first of all, it's Tom Petty's 70th birthday today, right? So happy birthday, Tom. And Wildflowers being, I think you said it's 26 years. I thought it was 25, but is it 26 years ago that it released?
Yeah, it came out in '94, and so here we are in 2020. Here we are on 10/20/2020.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
And it would have come out sooner had Tom not, passed away, and he was
Mhm.
working on it before he did, and it was the Wildflowers record. It was originally a double album. We worked on so many songs, and we had, the 24 or 5 that we really liked and we finished were going to be a huge double album, but the Warner Brothers executives talked him out of it, which is probably a good idea at the time. And that's one of the reasons why, even though got 14 songs on it, the Wildflowers record as it was, it's just all aces. It's all really good songs. It's all
It's great.
Like Tom said a couple of times, like if you had a gun and you had 6 chambers, why would you only want to put 1 or 2 bullets in the chambers? Like you got to fill that gun up with all bullets, like you got to put all good songs on your record. You can't put like some crap filler. It's not going to do anything. Like everything's got to be good. It's sort of like something he probably learned from being on the road with Kiss. Like those guys don't mess around. Like it's like every song's a single. Every song is a #1. Every bridge comes right before an amazing chorus, and that's kind of what the Tom's. Not comparing Kiss and Tom Petty, but it's like you have got to write good songs. You've got to write something that means something to you and means something to your fans and means. If you don't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it. So,
yeah. And so that's a good point, because obviously, like, meeting Hamish, and, we did not come clean to you. I will admit, we came extremely messy, which is not something people talk about a lot, but it's like, sometimes it just doesn't work out, right? There's a vibe and you don't feel it, but you have really great things and you spent a lot of money getting people in the room. And so like, what can you do to salvage something? And, we didn't even know what we were sitting on, because I don't even think we had the files at that point. We still had to get them. So you were so instrumental in kind of just, coming in and calming everything down for us. But I'm curious, like, what was it about Hamish that made you want to do it? I mean, it's probably a lot easier to do other things than do this.
What you have to remember, a guy like me, like a recording engineer, producer guy, and I've been lucky, I've worked hard, I've had a good career. This is all fantastic. But none of that happens unless I have artists to work with. I can't come over here by myself and do anything. There's nothing for me to do except, like clean up around the place. So I need artists to come in, and I need to try to help them with my experience and my passion. So, any project, any artist that comes to me that wants to talk to me about music or talk about working together, I take that very seriously. And I listen very carefully to everything that comes to me. And unfortunately, a lot of it I have to sort of pass on because it's below the line and it's not going to be good. No matter if I did my best work ever, it still wouldn't be very good. And that's just how it goes. But when you hear some music from an artist, they say, would you like to hear some songs? And you listen to songs and they're really great. And the guy sings in tune and plays in a groove and has songs that I like and remember. That gets my attention. And then I say, yeah, man, we can do something. Let's talk about the next step. Like, what are we going to do? And, whether you have a record company behind you, or if it's your own, your own pocketbook, or you have a benefactor or a Kickstarter, wherever the financing comes from, nothing will happen until you have good songs and good singing. So that is why we're here tonight, because I knew in the first 2 or 3 songs that I heard that Hamish was great and that I wanted to work with.
That's great. Well, we're really grateful. Thank you for not judging.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine.
Maybe the toughest time in both of our lives. I think it was really, really rocky. But we knew we had something good because we had Johnny Rattlehat on drums, so that was always a good thing too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. So how did like working on the music and the production? Obviously, because we came and we sort of mapped it out we had some pieces that were done before, and then we filled them in with overdubs. But then when you guys actually got in the studio and you picked the songs you wanted to produce, how did like the production part, like were there moments that you remember, like I know obviously Working Blues was the first one we laid down, and we kind of went in and was like, this has a lot of swing to it. Yeah. It was really fun. So
it's about being comfortable in the studio. You know, I mean, Hamish had done, you know, a lot of work before he got here. It wasn't like he, you know, had never been in a studio. It wasn't like he had never done a gig. It wasn't like he had never played with pickup bands or no band or, you know, just like whatever. And so to actually get your friends and people who are into it, into a recording studio where you have things that work and microphones that sound good and drums and amps and everything that sounds good, and you put on your headphones and you start playing and it sounds like a record, that's pretty fun. It's fun for me. I mean, that's my goal. My trick is to be so ready and so prepared and get it sounding so good as quickly as I possibly can, like within minutes of them starting, that by the time they get their headphones on and get comfortable and get their things adjusted, it's sounding really good. And then when they come in for a playback, it sounds like a record, not like, well, I know, yeah, well, we're going to fix that up later. Or, yeah, well, I know it's a little, you know, no, it sounds like, wow, really? We just did that? We did that, and it's like, it's only 2:00 in the afternoon, and we just did that? That's what I work towards, because I've been on the other side of that window where it sounds terrible, and you come in and you can't defend terrible. You can't. Like, I've played stuff back and it sounds terrible, and I know it, and they know it, and everybody knows it, and it's like, all right, well, let's go back in there and let's see if we can do something. Or it's like, wow, really? That sounds great. Yeah, what's next? So that's sort of the trick.
It was magic. I remember when we walked away that first day, we got in the car and listened to remember that, Hamish?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Tracks. Yeah. It was like,
well,
we already have a mix?
No.
Yeah, and Working Blues was one that, like, starting with that, I remember, because it's so big and so fun. That kind of set the whole template for what we were going to do, that it was, you know, the whole band playing together at the same time. And we had a great band, because it was Jim bought Chris Bruce, who's an incredible bass player and also an incredible guitarist, but he was on bass doing that. And
from Doyle's band.
From Doyle's band. And I bought Jerry Bourget, who I've been playing with live, who was on keys, who's played with Jonathan Wilson. And then we had Aaron Sterling, who's played with everyone like John Mayer and stuff. And it was just a great band that I remember how exciting it was, you know,
well, that's the thing.
up.
There were professional musicians in the room who were excited to be with you and excited to be working in, you know, like a happy, healthy working environment, doing what they love to do, make records like we all love to make records. And it just, you know, we just started hitting on all cylinders. It was like, let's go. This isn't hard. This is easy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we started working through the tracking. We did the mixes with you for the other songs. So basically, like, okay, when you guys were working through this, I mean, I know the answer to this, but like, when did you know the song was done? Like, when did you feel like you're like, okay, that's it? You know, because talk about that process. Because in order for you to get to a place where you have a rough mix when you walk out the door for 2 songs, when you've been tracking for 1 day with even a trio or a 4-piece band, a lot of thought goes into exactly what is being kept. You know what I mean? And like what's going away. And you do that so fast, but also so methodically. I remember looking over your shoulder, and you have your chart of all the things so you can remember what you love. Like, it's your process. Can you talk about it for us? It's beautiful.
Well, my process is about getting home a little earlier. And what I mean is, like, if you're going to play a song 10 times, which is not unusual, and that's not a lot. If you want to try to play a song 10 times, like, let's take 1, too slow. Take 2, too fast. Take 3, no, Tommy made a mistake. Take 4, yeah, it just didn't feel good. Take 5, let's take a break. We're hungry. Let's go get something. You know, it's easy to play a song 10 times in the recording studio, and some people might play it many more times. So anyone who's ever made a record will know that it's it's not the number of times, it's the number of times that you play it well. So I've discovered that if I pay attention from the very first note of the very first take, and am prepared and have a chart of the song of like with a bar count, like intro, first verse, second verse, chorus, whatever the arrangement of the song is, I have a map. And if I hear something that I like on take one, it gets a little check mark because it's good. And if I hear something that's bad, it either gets no check or an X. And if I hear a drum fill that I like, it gets a little mark going into the chorus. There's a little fill on take one that's really pretty good. And you like big chunks, but you like what you like. And then on take two, it might be like, yeah, the whole first verse is great. Oh, well, they kind of screwed up there. And the reason, and you go through take one, take two, take three, take four, take five, and I'm paying attention, and I can look at my map and go like, good, 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 bad, 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 good, 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 all the way down, all the way through the arrangement, all the takes. And then I can look across the chart and go like, I can put an amazing edit together of all amazing things. And that saves so much time, because otherwise the band plays 5 takes and they come in and go like, yeah, I think we're pretty good. Let's go in and listen to them. So it takes the same amount of time to play back 5 takes as it does to record 5 takes, all analog, all real time. And so you sit there and you play back 5 takes, and somebody says, yeah, I think take 3 was pretty good. It's like, no, 3 was the one where I made a mistake. Was it? No, 4 was the one that I liked. Really? Well, but 4 was the one where, didn't you change the guitar on 4? I mean, like, there's no one has a memory. No one can remember the intro and the verse and the pre-chorus and the take and the fill of all those takes through all that time. So somebody's got to pay attention. And if you want to stay up all night and listen to it over and over and over and try to remember, well, that's up to you. But I've done that. I did that for like 20 years, staying up till 6 o'clock in the morning, cutting tape together, trying to get a take. And now I pay attention, and I have a map, and I write down when it's good, and I write down when it's bad. And it's not hard, but somebody's got to do it. So I do it. So when I think I have a take, and it might be a one complete take, or it might be an edit of all 10 takes, I say, all right, everybody come in, give me 1 minute. I'm going to cut together a little highlight reel for you of this take. And we cut it together and play it back. And that's the first thing we play back. We play back all good stuff. Nobody hears anything bad.
Yeah.
Everybody hears everything good. And then suddenly spirits are high. It's like, man, we're good. And then you can fix it from there. If somebody's got a problem or missed a note or wants to punch in, that's fine. But that's the process. The process is paying attention and speeding things up so that there's momentum. Because you can lose people. If they're not involved, they'll go have a cocktail or check out, or they'll just like not be available. Or you got to keep everybody's attention. You got to keep them interested. You got to keep them excited. And the way you do that is with momentum. So it takes a lot of energy and concentration, but it's the only way that I know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's great.
It's pretty boring for people who don't have any idea what we're talking about. But that's how
I loved it. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're making trouble. We're talking about it. So, and it wasn't boring being on the other end of this. Like, I don't know, Hamish, why don't you talk about what did it feel like? And when did you know the songs were done? Like when were you like, oh my God, this is gelled and I'm here and this is arrived?
Yeah, I think like on the side of like, it kind of ties in, but just before recording, I think like a big part of what working with Jim taught me was like the attention to detail about the song. So like before you go in and do the recording and everything, I remember we went through all the demos and all the songs, and it was so much about making sure that every part kind of has meaning and is there for a reason. Like a lot of the times I could write songs that things would maybe repeat too many times, and I would get attached to, repeating a chorus a bunch of times or an intro, whatever. And Jim really helped me to kind of hone in on like, you don't need to hammer something home so many times. And it's more interesting if, maybe you go back to a bridge twice instead of one time or whatever it was. It just puts such a laser focus on songwriting for me. That's, ever since then, I feel like my songwriting has just improved and improved because that's been the focus. It's been not on, oh, well, it'll sound different later when it has this guitar in it or whatever. It's like, if it doesn't sound good on an acoustic guitar playing it with nothing else, then it's not really a song. Like you're kind of just shitting yourself. So like that was a big part of it. And then, I think it was like Jim was saying, the fact that he does a mix that you play it and then you go in and you instantly hear it. Like one of the strongest memories I have from it was when we did the song You. And I remember playing it and then instantly going back into the room to hear it all together. And it was just like a moment that I'll never forget, that it was like hearing that organ, the B3 sound. And like I said before, the sound of my voice just being so clear and so upfront. It just like, it just took me kind of aback. And I remember that was like a big conversation that we had. I remember, Jim, you were talking about that, like on Tom Petty records, his voice is really upfront. And then you were saying on like Rolling Stones records, Mick Jagger's voice is kind of more back and kind of buried in the mix. And we were going for somewhere kind of in between those two things. And I think I'd been through that situation of coming in from playing and it doesn't sound good. And they say, oh, well, later on with this and that, like I knew exactly what you're talking about. So to have you come in and it sounds great and sounds like a song and a band, it's just like, that's a big part of it. And I think the way that Jim works is the way I like to work as well, which is also not overthinking everything. And like, if it sounds good and it feels good, that means it's good. You don't have to spend days trying to get a drum sound or a guitar sound and do this like whole tortured artist thing. It's like, if it sounds and feels good, then that means it's good.
Yeah. I feel like I learned a lot watching you, just like the less is more. Does it serve the song? I just feel like that's like a piece that, people get very self-indulgent in these places. And it's, to take something away feels like, what are you doing? Why are you taking that away from me? But, you are a great litmus test of like, is it really necessary? Like, you're so, it's a great, you have a discerning ear, and it's really nice to have that, just in your back pocket, and know that somebody's got your back. It's great. So, okay, I know we're kind of inching in on sort of our time together, but I wanted to just check and see like a couple things. What do you think is a key ingredient to your partnership?
Well, it's his songwriting, and it's his vocal sound and his ability to sing in tune and be like, write good words and sing in tune and be like focused and there and like a real human. He writes the kind of songs that after you hear it once, you could imagine yourself like singing it. It's not the kind of, like, some singers are so incredible that no one can sing like them. And Hamish is like the kind of like star guitar player singer that everybody wants to be. Like, he makes it look so easy. And like, why couldn't I could do that? That's great. I love that. Why can't I do that? So that's what it is for me. I've almost all of the records that I made are led by a front guy who writes the songs and plays great. And there's leadership. Like, that's what's going on. This is this guy's record. And, whoever's in the band, they would say the exact same thing if you ask them the question. That's why they're in the band. Like, they're not in the band because they're the most amazing keyboard player in the world. Otherwise, they'd be Stevie Winwood and play keyboards and sing. They're not. They're in his band. And same with everybody that works with him. Same with me. That's why I work with him. So that's it. For me, that's the key. Good songs, good singing, nice guy. Great manager.
We have it on tape. I love you. Okay, Hamish, what about you? What do you think is the key ingredient?
Yeah, I think it's just because it's all about feeling. Like, everything that was done because it felt good and with a lot of care and attention. And that's what I think was the whole thing, that it wasn't about trying to sculpt up a radio hit or this or that, whatever. Like, it was all just because it was cool stuff that felt good to us. And that part of it, like I was saying, I like that Jim doesn't overthink things and he goes by what feels good instead of, I can tend to, in my normal life, overthink everything, but music is maybe the only thing I don't overthink. And that's when I can kind of go with my gut and, follow my feelings. So I think that was a big part of it. And just, you know, it was like a great group of people to work with. I was very lucky to be able to work with all you guys and the band, you know, the players and everything. And it was like,
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was like a really great, loose, tight band. Like
Yeah,
that was the
right.
whole thing. Was it was
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know, a lot of it was just super groove oriented, and it wasn't, you know, there wasn't a lot of super fast songs or anything like that. It was very in the pocket and had a nice kind of rock thing, but with like a relaxed thing going on as well.
Yeah. Hey, Johannes, will you play the Trouble video so we can show everybody the Pliers studio too while we're talking about this stuff? I know we're gonna. If you guys haven't heard this album, shame on you. First of all, please go and listen to it. Save it, stream it, do something, anything you can. This is just one of the videos that we did from this album, and we also did the other single we did was "Hold on Me," which is, if you haven't seen that video, it's like a movie. But this one is done in Jim Scott's Pliers studio, so you can see there's Aaron Sterling and little Hamish on the mic in the big room. We got everybody in here, so this was a really fun video. Yeah, and that's a beautiful place. And then from there we went into Hold on Me, and we did a mini movie there where Jim Scott actually stars in. It was a take on the what was that movie? The Taxi Driver movie.
A Taxi Driver, yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. So we had that asset. It was amazing. It's a beautiful video. So Johannes, if you want to put Hold on Me up for a second. And then we also did, like you said, You, which is we'll put that up at some point. And then You was the ballad, which a year after the album was out, we released to radio, a radio edit. And that was when KCRW and Jason Bentley started playing it on Morning Becomes Eclectic. So if anybody's watching, I think the one takeaway for me on these is, you know, everyone says, well, so it depends on the kind of music and the genre you're in. But in this particular genre, my learning is what these guys have put together is timeless and classic. And the goal to all of this was, you know, whether or not, you know, who knows what the next 10 years look like, but the idea is in, you know, 45, 50 years from now, you could still hear this music and it's contemporary in its sound. So everything we did, you know, when KCRW picked it up, it was like people were telling me left and right, well, that's just how it goes. Even though the album was a year old, you know, it's new to somebody. So that was that. This album kept getting its own life, and just so many things about it just kept going and going and going, pretty much right up until the second. There you are, Jim, on that device, getting picked up by Richie. So by the time we released the third single from it, it was like, this, where is this all going? So when you look back and you think about this stuff, it's like, you know, my personal feeling is like you have these moments where you just think nothing can go right, and then everything just suddenly kicked in and went into like, you know, a gear that felt like a marathon. We felt like we were running a marathon for a while. So there's another Hamish Anderson. So now that, if you haven't listened to it, please take a listen. Please, let's run those numbers up. I would really like to see some spike on some Trouble stuff, but we have been basically competing with this album every release we've had since then, which is great. So, well, before we go, are there any projects, Jim, that you're working on now that you want to talk about too? Well, we're thinking about, I know you have some really a big release for Neil coming up too.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've been fortunately busy during, you know, this year. It's very, very bittersweet. One of my dearest friends, an amazing artist named Neil Casal, who I made his first demos that got him his record deal and his first album and his third album. And Neil Casal is an amazing artist, and sadly he committed suicide about a little over a year ago, which took us all by surprise because nobody saw it coming. He was very popular. He was working at the top of his game. He was, you know, in the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. He was in Ryan Adams and the Cardinals. He had 11 solo albums. He performed at Lock-In with O'Teal and Friends and Phil Lesh, 24 hours before he committed suicide. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to just wrap our heads around what we can do for our dear friend. I've known him since the early 90s, made his first recordings ever, and his last recording, his band Circles Around the Sun, we were in the studio together just 3 days before he passed away. So what we're doing, my manager, Gary Waldman, and Neil were very, very close and grew up together and worked at the same record store many years ago in New Jersey. So what we've decided to do is honor Neil with an incredible memorial album, and it's just grown and grown and grown. We're going to have over 30 artists recording his songs, and a really amazing combination of artists who are giving their talent and their time to this project. So the reason we're doing it is to honor Neil's memory, because he was a sweetheart and we all loved him. But we're also going to raise awareness, suicide awareness, for artists or people that have trouble, people that need counseling, people that have financial trouble, and we're running it through the Grammy organization and the Music Cares.
Right.
And the record should be out in springtime. It's a really big deal. It's a huge undertaking, over 30 songs and 30 artists. And so any money that we make from the sale of the record is going directly to Music Cares. So anybody in the music business, and everybody needs help now. All the roadies need help because they're not working. All the artists need help because there's no touring. People have no insurance. People are sick. People have depression, and Music Cares is a place where you can go to get help. And
incredible.
Any money that we make from his publishing rights after the sale of the record is all going to go to the Neil Casal Foundation, which will provide music instruments and music lessons for children in the state of New Jersey, where he grew up. So it's very, very, very bittersweet and very sad, but we're happy to do it. And it's a very joyful record, but it's incredibly sad at the same time. I'm producing it with David Schools from Widespread Panic, and Gary Waldman, my longtime manager, has been a genius in terms of organizing this incredible array of artists and just organizing all the sessions and the flights and the hotel rooms and everything that we've done. So that's what one of the big projects I'm working on now. And I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate. People have come to me. I've had a really good time this year. I have a new album out by a great band called Reckless Kelly. They have a double album out. I've mixed their last couple records. They're fantastic. They're an American band. I love them dearly. They play great, their own version of like a country folk rock, legit kick your ass kind of music that is so real that
that's great.
It's so real, it's surreal. It's really, really great. They have a great double album out. It's called American Jackpot and American Girls, and the package is amazing. You should really see it.
That's great.
I'm also excited about. I made a record with Joe Satriani earlier this year, late last year and earlier this year, and Joe Satriani is one of the absolute greats, and I learned so much about guitar tone from him. I thought I knew something, but man, that guy he is an incredible guitar player, and he writes great songs, and we had an amazing band, and his album came out earlier this year. It's called Shape Shifting, and I'm really, really proud of it because it's a really spectacular performed and sounding record. And I also have to mention our mutual Lauren Monroe, our mutual friend. She is an incredible songwriter and singer. She's a healer. She's a clairvoyant. She's a teacher.
Yeah, we had her on.
Yeah, you had her on. And
3 weeks ago,
she has an EP out at the moment called Big Love, and the second EP coming out very, very soon. And then on the heels of both of those EPs, we'll put them together and release it as an album. Yeah. But I'd like to, that's what I'm working on and what I've been working on. There's also lots of things sort of in the can, and I'm very, very lucky, and thanks for asking about that.
Yeah. Well, the Neil thing, just let us know when that goes live. I mean, obviously I love Neil. Neil, man, he was such a sweetheart. And Hamish and I had a lot of fun talking with him that one night about, I enjoyed the Grateful Dead conversation. I think Hamish enjoyed the Rolling Stone conversation. So yeah, he was like one of those few people that could do both of us. So it was kind of like you. We could get Yeah, it was really, and if you don't know Neil's story, please go to the foundation. I know it's tough times and everything, but like he was an inspiration to so many people, and his style of playing. I mean, I saw him perform with Chris Robinson Brotherhood, and I was just like, wow, it's just, I mean, he's just magnificent. He was a beautiful soul. So I'm glad that you're doing that, and I think it's important to keep his memory alive.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Whatever we can do. And speaking of, so Hamish, I know you've got. We're hoping to get you some stuff for the. What are you thinking is next for you?
Yeah, well, obviously, as most musicians, really, like most of the year was usually spent bouncing between playing live and touring, and then in studios and stuff. And I kind of been, it's been a very different year for me because I've been based in LA for the past 5 years or so, and this is the first year kind of back in Australia and here for indefinitely at the moment. So it's been the streaming gig world has been like the big thing.
Right.
So yeah, playing a lot.
Your the tracks from the Gary tour. We're hoping to maybe do.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of recorded stuff from last year when I opened for Gary Clark Jr. that we're hoping, with Jim, it would be great. I've kind of been
for you, Jim. Yeah,
sifting through stuff and trying to see what we got. So I think that would be cool to do, to kind of like, especially because I see Trouble and Out of My Head kind of as like a package almost together. That it's cool that some of those songs live have taken on like a different life, and it'd be cool to show that side of it and document, especially because it's pre whatever's going on now. So it was, it's almost a different world, that stuff. So yeah,
the sound is amazing. I mean, we know we've got stuff, so we're just really excited, but we have to, so much to go through still. It's insane, but that's the goal, is one of these days we'll have a nice, one of the other things too, is you see his live, people always ask like, where's the live album? So we'd love to get one that's like legitimately a live album that, done right.
Good idea.
Yeah. So, okay. And before you go, 2 questions. What are some advice you can give to young musicians or anybody starting out that like just quickly, like things to like help them think about how to get started or keep on their path?
Talking to me?
Yeah. Words of wisdom. Come on.
Listen, you practice. You talk about your 10,000 hours, your 100,000 hours. Like if you want to be as good as the people that you admire, there's only one way to do it. No one is born amazing. People practice. So practice, rehearse, stay healthy, work with other people, take as many chances as you can. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid, to walk away from a really good situation into a worse situation if you think it's ultimately going to be better. You only got one trip around, so you're going to kick yourself later if you don't for it. So that's sort of my. It's hard out there. It's hard. People ask me all the time. They want to know where the secret door is to open the door to fame and fortune, and like where's the top of the pops? Where do I get like a huge tour? Where's the secret door to get me on the stage at the Forum? It's like, you got to work so hard. Like, just read everyone's story. Everyone's story was from the Beatles to the Van Halen to the Rolling Stones to, everybody played 1 million gigs. And Hamish was talking about it earlier. You play every gig that you possibly can. And you learn how to tell a story while you're changing a guitar string that you just broke, or you learn how to play on a 5-string guitar that has the D string is missing. You just figure it out and just keep going, and never let them see you sweat. Just do it. That's the advice. I wish there was some secret, because if there was, I wish I'd have had it a long time ago. But all I know is show up, work hard, and be the happiest guy in the room at 4:00 in the morning, and come back the next day with a really good attitude. That's all you can do.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, Hamish, you're kind of on your journey, but if there's anything you want to.
Well, I think all those things are true. And I think really also just listen to as much music as you can. And, with practice, when you practice hours a day, I also listen to music for hours a day, just because I think that you learn so much, from listening to the greats and things about songwriting and production and singing and all that stuff. It's like really just keeping your ears open and staying inspired, I think, is the main thing. Just making sure that, you know, you've always got that inspiration going.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so speaking of inspiration, the very last question I have for you is something we ask everybody, and I'm curious to see what both of you think. So if you had to choose one song that you like, you know, those moments when you're like, oh, I wish I had written that song, or oh, I wish I'd produced that song, or I wish that was my song, what would that song be for you guys? Okay, I'm gonna pick one of you. It's say Hamish, why don't you start?
I mean, there's a lot of them. I have that feeling. I have that feeling all the time. I mean, like, Crawling Back to You is one that every time, by Tom Petty, that's on Wildflowers. Every time I listen to that song, it just hits me on such a deep level. And it doesn't really sound like anything else I've heard before. I can hear different influences, but it has its own thing. And I think, you know, the line, like, most things I worry about never happen anyway, that's like a thread that just runs through my life that I just, yeah, I feel like, and like, you know, Ooh La La by the Faces, that's another one that, like, yeah, when I listen to that, that's just like, yeah, it's that funny mix of like, I feel happy and melancholy when I listen to it, and it just hits me every time I hear it, you know.
Those are good. Okay, you snuck a second one in, but I said one, so whatever.
I could sneak a third one.
No, Jim, what about you?
Oh man,
I'll give you two, but
well, it kind of depends on what decade, you know. I mean, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up. I'm a big guitar guy. I want to pick something that's loud and rocking and just kicking ass, and I want to pick something that is like just blows your head off. But I think I might have to pick In My Life by the Beatles.
Whoa, okay, that's beautiful. Beatles.
You know,
Kristen's writing that down and check them out.
I am. Gotta go Google that
Beatles.
one.
You know, it's just a sweet song with beautiful words.
Yeah. That's a beautiful song.
You know, it makes more sense to me as you know, as I get a little further down the line.
Yeah, me too. I get it. It's sentimental, and there's nothing like that feeling that you just hear it. You're like, oh yeah, totally. I feel it. It's beautiful. I liked your idea about the. I'm gonna tell him about the Irving Berlin.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There you go. You can have it.
Say it. They don't know. Okay, never mind. Originally,
go ahead.
Okay, so you know, like occasionally you get to do like a little pre-pro, and I was like, oh, just think about like a song that you know, whatever one that you wish you produced.
You said the song that I would have produced, and
the song
White Christmas, because I'd have made a fortune by now. I'd have an island somewhere with like, you know, a mansion on top of a mansion, and a boat and a helicopter.
He's like one of the biggest grossing songs of all time. As a producer, I was like, I respect that. Yeah. That's the smartest answer I've heard. Yeah, it wasn't like heartstrings. Originally, he was.
Yeah, you know.
Anyway, well, thank you guys. Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys, prayer hands. Thank you so much for joining me. I know we went way over. This is our longest uncut, but you know, to be honest with you, you guys are worth it. And Jim, I'm so grateful that you took some time out of being in the studio to spend some time with us and reminisce about the 4 years we had since trouble began.
Well, I'm glad to be here. It's great to see you again. I miss you guys. I want to get back to normal. I want you back here as soon as you can come here.
Yeah, sure. Us too.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to a sandwich and a Miller High Life beer. And
okay.
Nothing like it. Yeah, he's probably having a hard time finding Miller High Life over there. Huh?
To get some import. Yeah.
We'll have to send some cases. You know, anyway,
it's the champagne of beer.
That it is.
Yeah, you taught him well. Anyway, thank you again. Everybody out there, please take a listen to Trouble. We would really appreciate it. We'll be celebrating tomorrow by listening to it all day. And thanks again so much for everything. And Jim, Hamish, I love you. I love you. I'm very, very proud of the work we've done together. So we'll have to come on again next year. We'll talk about Out of My Head. But in the meantime, everybody stay safe, wear your masks, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.